Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going.
Every time I watch that intro, I'm like, oh, I'm in Egypt.
Me too. I'm like, oh, I can't wait. Yeah, I want to watch it again.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's so good. So good. So you girls have kind of the show at hand. Tonight we wanted to follow up and continue on the frequency and the plasma and some things that have been coming through for us. Norma, did you send that clip over as Tim for me?
I did. Seen your telegram.
Awesome. Melzie, how are you doing today? Let us know.
I'm doing great. I went mesquite bean hunting or like wildcrafting, and it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. So now I get to play with the beans, and I'm gonna dry them, and then I'm gonna roast them, and then I'm gonna make some into syrup, and some into like a tea, and then some into a flour.
Is that where the mesquite flavor comes from?
Well, I think it might actually. The mesquite flour, like the flour is very expensive because you have to hand pick it and process it the way I'm doing it. So
right,
it can go from, like I think $12 to $25 a pound.
Ouch. Wow, interesting. I didn't know that. Learn something new
Yeah.
every day. At least the real flavor of mesquite instead of the chemical one. Norma, how are you doing today? What's going on for you?
I'm fantastical.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastical. Just coming more and more into understanding what this life is, how to traverse it in the ways that are so excitingly just creative. Just coming more and more into the empowerment of self to know how to be better at this game called life.
Right. In this time and place, in this timeline.
Yeah.
How
about you?
I'm good. I have a full moon ceremony to go to tonight. I do that with my Pilates studio. Karen's a good friend, and we've been partnering together. She plays those sound bowls, and I do group healings and give messages. And we've got a poolside tonight at somebody's private house. So
can I come? Oh, that sounds awesome. Really, you guys have an amazing time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm here to hang out for a few minutes, but realistically, Doug's in the background giving you guys help, and you know what you're going to talk about. So take it away, ladies.
Well, just talking about what you just talked about with the sound bowl healing and frequency and how that can affect water, like because water takes a charge on it, and we're made of water, right? So there was a video that, too bad I forgot to bring it in, but it showed how sound will manipulate water. And then they would take a picture of it, right? So they could see the plasma inside of it. And so, I don't know, I take a lot of baths and I love them. And, I put Epsom salt in them. And I think that they're very healing because I talk to the water. I sit there and I'll tell it like, all my problems, all my things,
nice.
And then afterwards, I'll tell the water, thank you, and I love you, and thank you for listening to me, and go and be well, so that it doesn't have all this trauma that it took, you know. So I kind of see it as a releasing ritual for myself. And I kind of feel that I can access that quantum field a little bit better sometimes in a bath and in water. So, but with sound, that would be, you know, the whole thing I'm sure will be magical and an amazing experience. So you'll have to report back to us and tell us how it goes.
Oh, I will. Yeah, I'll do some videos and stuff too. Yeah. It's important for people to remember too that you are a frequency being, right? We are water. And today Chef Agat stopped by with some food for tonight, which was very kind of her, and came into this recently was reminded that we are crystalline water within us. And what makes our water crystalline is not the water we drink, it's the chlorophyll from the plants that we eat. Right? And I was like, that makes so much sense why I've been eating so much more, right? Why I've been on the game I've been on with this. So yeah.
And the plasma. The plasma inside, though, you know, the crystalline aspect is a plasmic aspect with energy, right? So it's actually like, I was watching something that talked about how they used a lens that was a crystalline lens to access different dimensions, like 8th dimension. And then they could come back into like the 5th dimension or something. And it made me realize how, if we have that plasmic element, how we, with a crystalline aspect, we can go in and out of different dimensions. So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Right? That the plasma makes up 99% of everything we live in. And yet it's like for us trying to figure out, we're fish in water and we're trying to understand water, kind of, you know, that's how it is for us, right? We have no understanding of what it is we live in. And we're trying to describe it and feel it and touch it. And yet it's something that is a part of us. Like, you know, that what I was watching with Dan Winter today, he talked about there being like a, what did he call it? Cold atmospheric plasma. And so cold atmospheric plasma is very healing. And he said, you know, how do you get that? How do you, he said the ancients knew this. So how did they know this, and how did they achieve it, and what did they do? One of the things that we can do is like go into nature, because nature, like trees, are emanating, like, you know, they're emanating their aura, right? And they have like, they're kind of like our lungs of the earth. And so when we go in there, we're in this plasmic field, right? And we kind of let go, and we kind of, you know, release that. And so when we can live in bliss, and when we can release, then those lower vibrations can't live in that atmosphere, right? So then our aura will increase. So how do you increase your aura? One of the things you can do, like you said, food is one of them, right? If you're eating refined food and low vibrational food, your aura is not going to be glowing so much. You can see that too when you see junk food eaters. So, and the next step is really devoting that time with you in nature, I think. Creating that sacred space for yourself.
And you were talking about talking to the water. I was thinking you'd talk to your body too, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to talk to your body, because a lot of people are more in here than they are here. And as you connect with your body, okay, what's going on in there? Are you okay in there? Do I need to do something, right? Is there something I'm missing in my diet? And I was reminded today by my acupressurist. It's like, Tanya, you can tell your body before you start doing an exercise or a movement to let it know it's coming, and it'll help with the cartilage. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. Why are you laughing, Norma Jean?
You know, to think about what we're thinking about, right? So for thinking thoughts, like sometimes if you look in the mirror and maybe you're thinking of something, right? Maybe it's the mirror of what you're thinking. So maybe you got to like, oh, I don't like my nose is getting, or the wrinkles or whatever you got going on, right? And so the mirror of that, really, that isn't truth sometimes. The things that we have going on in here, they're not necessarily truth. So we can change that, what we're saying, because we're saying it. Your cells are listening to whatever it is you're subconsciously saying. So if you want to have a different, mindful experience with yourself, you can start speaking to yourselves in a positive way.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that I used to say was, thank you for the service that you've done. Like any cells that are ready that don't have the energy to go on, that want to retire and make room for a new cell to come in. Thank you for your service. And, the next cell comes in, may you shine and vibrate at your highest optimum ability. And I would tell that to myself daily because, I didn't know where I needed work sometimes, right? I don't know. Like, we don't know those things. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And sometimes we'll have things come up that we need to release. And how do we do that? How do you guys do that releasing?
Write it out, burn it, send it to Mother Earth, send it to the sun, run it through my chakras. If it's an energy thing, I run it through my chakras and send it out. Or send it through my feet, depending on what it is and where I'm called to send it, what pops into my head. Norma?
A lot of what I've come to experience is sitting in that quiet contemplation and allow my feelings to help me recognize the parts of myself that I'm still getting rid of, those binding of the chains, so to speak. And when I recognize that, I sit with it, I feel it, and I love it. So that way I'm able to alter my feeling about that time in space. So that way I can love it, release it, let it go with as much love and appreciation and gratitude as I can. And what that does is it opens up this big area for expansion. So that's what I do. I love it. And I give it appreciation because it's taught me something. It's taught me what it is, either that I've been through and I don't have to go through it again, or it's taught me something about self, which is strengthened who I am. So that way, as I continue to traverse this game called life, I just do better at being more defined in my choices as to what it is I want to experience.
Beautiful. Melzie, you?
I do a lot of walking, I listen to music every night, and that really helps me release things that I know that I need to. I have done the burning of stuff before. It seems sometimes like I'm so busy that I don't have time, so I kind of need to take those thoughts when I have them, something I'm working on, and I'll examine it. And in past, I might look at something and say, oh, this happened to me, or I have a different outlook on, like, what was my part in it? What did I learn from it? And then I can breathe, like you said, Norma, love and light into it, and then release it. Because I don't want to hold on to that energy anymore. Like, sometimes it's binding in us, right?
Yes.
And why do we want to continue in something that doesn't serve us anymore? Like, if we've learned from it, now we can go on. And like you said, Norma, then we have that room for expansion of something else to come in. And the next, because we have freedom, right, from that. And in freedom, we're not bound by those emotional chains anymore. And I don't know if you guys feel this. Sometimes when you get like a massage, you'll have emotions that come up. all these things, memories and emotions that you didn't think about. It's because our body, our cells, and our salt cells, they actually hold memory, right? So how do we release that? Because we're made of water, we're crystalline being. So how do we release that, heal that, and we can speak it to our body, I believe. And that's a self-healing.
100%. Speaking of that, I'm going to jump out and let you ladies continue. Enjoy the show.
Okay.
I love you all, and I will.
And have a great night.
See you on Saturday. I will.
Okay.
I'll let you guys know how it goes.
Yeah. So I had a thought there too, and I just lost it. With that releasing of, you know, a friend of mine told me, this is kind of a neat thing that she said one time, is that I was having an issue with my mom, and I called her and she said, you know, put your mom in a rose in the middle of, kind of like in her pineal gland, you know, envision her and just pull over to the side and put all those emotions you're feeling in there. Anything that comes to mind, just put those emotions. And, you know, you can have any color rose you want. It doesn't have to be a white rose. It doesn't have to be a red rose. It could be a, you know, rainbow rose. And so I got to pick the color that I wanted to express of, like, I think emotion really to her. And then I started putting all this stuff in there. And of course I love my mom, but it was whatever odds we were having, I didn't know how to resolve it. And so this helped me to, she said, okay, you'll know when you're ready. She said, but when you're ready, you can release the rose and burst it into light. And, you know, at some point I felt ready enough to let it go. And she said, now continue to do that. If that comes up, practice this and just let it go, because whatever our heart and our, like, whatever our heart feels, it's really reality. So in the quantum world, right, whatever we're doing within our mind and our heart is real work that really affects this material reality, right? This experience that we're having.
Hugely. Because, you know, for so long we were taught to snuff, to repress those feelings just because of the conditioning that we were brought into. And it took some time for myself to recognize that I have an intuitiveness about me. The association just wasn't quite there until, you know, I started growing in myself and understanding that my feelings were the intuitiveness that were leading and guiding me in ways that I couldn't recognize at the time, because you're not taught about heart-mind coherence. You're taught about intellect-mind coherence, brain-mind coherence, because you're taught to be an intellectual being. So
without heart, right?
Right. But the thing about it is what's so important about that is the heart never forgot. So it was always reaching out to you. It was always giving you those little nudges. Hello, I'm right here. How do you feel about that? Is this really who you are? It was that heart coherence that was getting my attention to help me recognize the things about myself that I knew did not feel right, because I didn't feel good about certain choices that I made. So that was our heart coherence kicking in, because as a human being, we are a feeling being, and your feelings come directly from the heart, not the mind. And that's the reason why throughout, you know, this life, when we hold on to those emotions and they get stuck in the body somewhere, and you wonder why you're in pain, is because you were never taught how to release them properly. So as we go along in this, that what the heart-mind coherence tries to show us, it shows us what we need to do. We don't come up with the idea. it tells us it's a natural state of being. You're very centered in it because it's not something that you make up in your mind. It's something you hear because you feel it. You feel the love that comes from it and emanates from it. So when you spoke about, your mother and stuff, when we come to understand what this life is actually truly about and how powerful we are as creators, we begin to understand that every person we have in our life is a fractal of self. And that fractal of self is our family members, is our friends, is our acquaintances, are the people we deal with daily in our lives. And in that, as I grew in self and began to recognize the mirror image, because I began to have more of that heart-mind coherence, I became more of an observer and began to understand that I'm the one who's creating this reality.
Yeah, it's amazing because we're all in a piece of that creating of this reality, right?
Oh, yeah.
All of us are. And, our thoughts, I was also listening to Dan, and he said, when, you go around and you think judgment thoughts instead of compassion thoughts, that'll lower your vibration, right? So if you're sitting, you go into the store and you're grumbling in your mind all the time, if you can change that pattern of grumble to something that could be of gratitude,
Right.
or compassion, right?
Right. Right.
Then we're going to be putting a field out that is going to attract more of a higher vibration. Our aura will be better.
Right.
And
Right.
this is this is kind of interesting too, because you brought this up that living in a concrete building or living in a metal building, that's kind of like your aura is frozen. And that kind of makes sense sometimes, right? When we go into some buildings, we feel just not right in there. We just feel like, we're in a box or something.
We kind of are.
So we kind of are, right? So that's, he said, by, creating a sacred space for yourself. So what would that look like for us to create a sacred space that we could go and have peace? Maybe that's like a little fort out in the woods. Maybe it's going to the park and having a picnic with yourself. Maybe it's just laying down and taking a nap, or with some music on, with like the solfeggio frequencies or binaural beats.
Right.
But creating a space that you can find release and peace and serenity, I think, is important, right?
It is. Because, you got to be kind to yourself.
Yeah, who else is gonna?
Right. So what you give unto self, others will reflect back, because you're being that which you're wanting to experience, which means when you begin to do that and you want to be in that peaceful state or that blissful state, what you're doing is you're raising that vibration. So you're affecting the environment around you. And it's always good to be in an environment where you're able to expand as much as you need to, because once that peacefulness or that blissful state or that enormous overwhelmingness of the love state, it's uncontainable. So in you talking about, judgment and stuff like that, and I come across this this one TikTok, which I'm very ever rarely on TikTok, but there are times that I'm led, go here, there's something for you to hear. And I'm like, okay. So I come across this guy on TikTok, and I actually put it on Tanya's Telegram group, but he stated something yesterday that it was really, really profound. And it talks about the self, because we have to know who we are through all this, because that's the reason why it says in the Bible, know thyself. So I want to read this because I was going to bring this on because it was so profound. And what the gentleman was stating was, he says, when you understand that every opinion is a vision loaded with personal history, you will begin to understand that every judgment is a confession.
Wow.
Okay. So that when I read that, I was like, boom, because it made total and complete sense. Because when we talk about human beings and they're in those emotions that are stuck in the body, and we don't know, why are you acting this way? What's your problem? Why are you like this? It's because those emotions are expressing themselves because you're in pain due to what you have stuck in your body. So the only way we knew to express was through frustration, through whatever means we felt it took for us to alleviate how we were feeling. And it was to project. It was never to sit down and become centered, to know thyself, to get to the heart of every matter. So that is like, it takes the will, because intent, whatever your intent is what you place in the hand of your will to be the focus that the will hands over to the focus as to what it is you're trying to accomplish in coming to understand more and more about who you really are ultimately, by utilizing the time that you have with self to sit with self so you can feel, so that you may learn how to release all this baggage you were never meant to carry to begin with. That's not what the body was ever meant to do.
I agree. You know, that it brings me to a subject that I think about, that we talked with, you know, about the pyramids maybe emitting monoatomic gold and us living in a more of a plasmic, you know, environment. And, you know, I listened to Dan today, and he said that, Dan Winters said that the pyramids are like a magnet.
Yeah.
And it, right, they make sense. So if they're on ley lines and stuff, you know, he talked about it being that cold atmospheric plasma. So did it emit that into the ionosphere? And did we live in something that was a higher vibrational environment, and maybe we were more crystalline? You know, maybe the fall for us put us into more of a 3D matter imprisonment, you know, into our bodysuits, right?
Yes.
Because it said that Adam and Eve knew that they got skins, but whose skins were they? Were they their own skins? You know?
It could have been
I
the
don't know.
level of density.
Yeah.
It could have been just the levels of density, because even 3D has levels to density. And so as we are learning more about what plasma is in its numerous modalities, it is capable of being used for. It's I'm trying to say this word without messing up the malleability of it. Even in the Bible, it talks about, God is like, be moldable. Well, that's what the plasma is. We're not even talking about clay here. So, of course, to me, if you want to talk about altering words here, we are not that rigid. However, we can be that rigid only because of the lower level chakra systems that kept us in that more dense place of being. So as we come to understand that for ourselves, then what we want to do is it's not about the chakras being, bad or good. That's not how you think of it in terms. It's about understanding that we just remained in those areas for so long that as we begin to raise our vibration, then what we're doing is we're vibrating out of that such denseness to become lighter in this place that, we speak about a dome in the firmament, and in this gas can get just as dense as water as it freezes. Gas can be just as dense molecules because they've slowed down. But as you vibrate and you begin to affect the environment around you, so what you're doing is you're heating that gas up so those molecules move faster because you're changing molecular biology within your body to crystalline your body through the plasma, which affects the plasma outside, which expands the aura, which helps everything to begin to vibrate so much faster because as you rise, your environment has to do the same.
Yeah, it's affected by it, like a
Yes.
wave, right?
Yes.
As a wave goes out into the ocean, the ripples, the waves affect other things, right?
Exactly.
And because of plasma, we are entangled through that field that is something we can't see, right? It
Right.
resonates together.
It
And
does.
it's kind of like it, our chakra systems, you talk about it. And so if you have something blocked or good or bad, right, those are kind of our 3D words of polarity.
Right.
So it's kind of like we're an orchestra and you hear that orchestra playing and you hear somebody's playing really nice and beautiful and
Right.
getting everybody up to that level, right? And there's some that are like and then all of a sudden you hear it all come together and it's harmony. It's beautiful.
Yes.
They're harmonizing together. And
Yes.
that's kind of how I see it with us. You know, some are, a little squeaky as they're trying to get in tune. They're raising up to that vibration, right? So that whoever is the first chair, they know how to play the song, or they have their instrument in tune. So everybody is tuning up to that level. And then it's a beautiful orchestra, right, that we're going to be playing.
Yes, yes. And, and even in, as we talk about, they bring out, working with the shadow work and stuff like that. Well, let's kind of put that to the side and let's look at it this way. We're human beings. We're here having an experience, and we have two perspectives we can come from. Okay. We have a perspective over here, which is of, the negative, positive. And then we have another over here that is of the positive, negative, or negative, positive, positive, positive. And these are the fields that we are able to come from when we want to create an image that we put on the projector that will help guide us in the life that we are wanting to experience. And in those areas are your densities. From those densities, you have frequencies. And the frequency may not line up with the density until you reach a certain level. So let's say we have 3 densities. So you got lower, mid, and high. Well, at that high level of density is your hertz, or your frequency and vibration that matches that density level. In that density level, that's where you begin to understand you have found the balance between the two perspectives, and you see both perspectives fully and completely as they are without judgment, and you're able to have a better way at coming from your imagination as to how detailed you can be at what you want to create for your life. And that's where you find that balance as you raise your vibration, because you're becoming more heart-centered. You're becoming more heart-mind connected. You're becoming the God creator you are, ultimately.
Right. Our heart, I don't know if people know this, but our heart has a brain in it, just like our brain does.
Yes,
so,
considered the second brain, yes.
Yeah, so, when we say follow your heart, what does that mean? Follow your heart, a lot of people don't. And they know, I was reading something that said, like, bliss is, it's a series of decisions of making the right decision. And it's like, well, how do you know if you're making the right decision? You know it in your heart. Most of the time, you do.
Yes.
So when we don't follow our heart, then we get to learn usually a painful lesson. Isn't that something?
Right. Because life is a loop. Because when you hey Doug, could you throw that that photo up for me, please, sir. Thank you. All right. So I was, Tanya had sent me this video to watch last night with Magenta Pixie and Marina, and I can't remember her last name, the one that she had sent to you to watch. And this is what I got from what they were conveying about our levels of frequency and density as far as we're coming from. So you have the longitude and latitude. Everything's about longitude and latitude because everything is a grid system. When you understand that the grid system is set up the way that it's set up, and you understand that there's more than one reality to choose from, then you begin to understand that you are coming from a position and place to understand that this is your game board. This is the game board of life. And when you understand that, and no matter what point you're at, you are creating a visual of the, projecting that thought onto out there for life to say, okay, this is what you want. This is what you're asking for. Understand you're coming at it from whatever position or place you are. And then what you're doing is you're creating fractals. So for every moment that you are in the present moment, you're creating fractals depending on what frequency you're in and what thoughts you're having. So when that happens, the loop that's down at the bottom, that's what's taking place, because what you send out there has to come back to you. It just depends on what level of frequency you are in this four square. Are you in the negative when you create that thought? Well, guess what? If you are, it's going to come back to you in that level. Or if you're in that little bit, if you're in that level that's above that, which is the plus negative, then what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I'm still coming from this place of negativity, but I'm getting better at how I'm choosing what it is I want to experience, because now I'm starting to be led by the heart, because the heart's starting to get involved. So there's a polarity.
So intuition and is really important in creation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because that
like
is your guidance.
In your intention, right?
Yes.
So your intention, like I don't know if you've ever made orgone, William Reich's orgone, but when you're making it, you have to make sure it's alchemy. So you're putting your chemistry, your energy into that device, right? So if you've got stuff going on and you're not clear, then that will be put into it. It's kind of gets entrapped into that.
Right.
And so your intention is really important when you're cooking, and you're making, like, let's say you're cooking for someone and you are so excited. You put love into that, pecan pie. You went out and you picked all them pecans and you roasted them and you made sure that the best ones were in there and you baked that pie. That whoever is going to eat that is going to find pleasure in it because of the intention that you put into it, right? Now, if you don't really care and you just go buy a pie from, the local bakery, the person is going to feel that, right? That they're not going to have the same experience. And so our intention, what's behind our intention? Maybe we can do a check for ourselves. What's your intent? Is your intent ego-centered in this decision that you're making? Or is your intention to be like of service of others, of service of good to thyself, right?
Right.
So those are good checks for ourselves, I think, because what you are doing there and showing the fractals, I think, is awesome with the negative and the positive. Because like you said, if you have that negative aspect, I wish you well. Oh, I wish you well. You're really not wishing them well. You're putting like a negative intent into wishing them well. You're going to probably get a negative outcome out of that, right?
Right.
A negative experience. Have you ever heard of quantum jumping? Quantum jumping?
Yes. Yes.
Love it. Yeah.
That's what that is all about.
That is.
Yep. And that's the setup of all that. Yeah.
So this guy, I don't remember his name, but do you remember his name? The guy? Okay, so he was part of like one of the projects for I think remote viewing. And and he thought after, years of whatever, he was like, I'm going to try that. He thought about quantum jumping. He said, I'm going to envision what it would be like to be a famous painter, to be a really good painter, a master. And he started painting masterpieces. So instead of him going to learn and study, like in the 4D, right? The 4D is that time it takes to get to the mastery. So in normal, like 3D time, you have to go and you have to work really hard and paint, and it takes years of, repeated failures and successes to get to a point of mastery. But he just envisioned what it would feel like to be a master, to have painted that. And the more you put that feeling into how it would, the outcome, right? The vision, like the more that you draw, that your mind really believes that it's happening in the reality. So why wouldn't you paint a masterpiece? So he started painting these masterpieces, and then he thought, well, I'm going to try this on something else. I'm going to try it on music. I'm going to see if I can do this with music and become a famous pianist. And so then he started the same thing, started just playing this amazing music that was a masterpiece because he felt it in his heart. So we all have different timelines out there, and we kind of know it. Like, I could do this, or sometimes we have a decision, and it's real, like, clear path. There's a split in the fork. Like, I could do this or this. Right. And I know that if I do this, this is what it means. If I do this, it'll do this. And we're stuck between here and really here. That's the bridge, right? That's the fork.
Right. And it's beautiful the way you explain that, because, excuse me, from that, from the space, when you're speaking about that he was learning, art, here's the thing. Depends on what vibrational level he was in as to what it is that he wanted to experience that he's pulling from. So let's say, for example, in order for him to get to that place, he knew he had to be in a higher vibrational state, let's say the plus state, that when he put that out there, any fractal that was out there that had already become masterful catches up to him. Mm-hmm. So once that happens, it doesn't take as long to become masterful at painting. Just the same for learning how to play instruments. It depends on where you're coming from that vibrational state. And if it's ultimate love and you're creating this and you're very detailed in how you want to experience this, you're talking almost instantaneous manifest of that experience, because you're in the highest vibrational state any being can be in. Mm-hmm. Because you're not asking then, you're just putting out there what you want to experience, because you've become masterful at understanding your ability as a creator. You can experience anything you want, because now you're just becoming more detailed, and you're beginning to understand that you don't have to beg, you don't have to plead. Everything you need is out there waiting for you.
Yeah. When you beg and you plead to the universe, you're telling the universe that you want more of begging and pleading, really. Right.
You're telling the universe you don't have this object.
Yeah.
When you pray or plead, you're telling them, "Oh, this is missing from my experience." So when you sit in gratitude and you have the feeling of having it, that's all you need. You just need to have the feeling of having what it is that you want to experience, and sitting in that and having that experience and knowing what it feels like in this here now moment.
Yeah. The here now moment, I think for a lot is the hard part, isn't it?
Yes.
To be in gratitude for the experience of the here and now moment. You know, so because like let's say you're dealing with something that's really a struggle, and maybe you don't have a heart of gratitude at the moment. How do you get to that heart? How do you get to that? How do you bridge that, right? How
Right.
do you go to there? So I mean, I've been there,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I had a friend of mine. She told me, I came to her once, and I was wanted her to co-commiserate with me. Really, is what I wanted her
Right.
to do.
Right.
And she said, no, I'm not doing that. She said, why don't you write a gratitude list? And I was like, I'm not grateful for nothing. And she said, that's what I said, you know? And so, you know, that's what I was receiving then. So
Right.
she said, no, we're going to go through this list. You have 10 things you can be grateful for. So
Right.
I did. I started putting things down on there, you know, my dog, and I was grateful for coffee in the morning. And, you know, my list was real. It was my pillow. I mean, there were things that were real primal for me at that moment because I really didn't have a heart of gratitude. But
Right.
once I made that turn in my heart towards being grateful, I realized there were things in my life that I was grateful for. And they were really big things, like having a dog that loves me and having a pillow and a bed are great blessings. So my attitude changed, and then
Yes.
everything changed. My frequency changed.
Yes. And that's what this is about. It's, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. However, what it is, like I've said, what's your intent? What's your intent? Your intent, my intent has been know thyself, which means that's what I placed in the hands of my will to drive me to the focus that brought me that experience of getting to know who I am fully and experientially. And there's going to be those weaving in and outs. There's going to be those up and downs because this is what this life is about. It's about the many different areas of the fractalization of who you are that you're either recollecting and you're also creating new. So as you keep going through this and then if you have what I just showed on that game board, because basically that's what that is, it's your game board. Where are you at on this game board? When you had that thought, were you in a positive negative? Were you in a negative negative? Were you in a positive positive when you created that thought? Because thought is what you put out there to experience. And especially if you have words that come with it, because now you're casting it into manifestation.
Yes.
So you have to ask, you have to sit with yourself and get to know yourself so well. I've been doing that since I was 33. That's the reason why now it's just this for me. Because I've already put in the work. Because I never lost that connection because my heart always stayed very present with me. Even through the worst times, what I felt were the worst times of my experiences, ultimately actually ended up being the most beautiful times of my life because it taught me so much about myself. And when I recognized that and realized that, I was like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for that. I get that now because I know more about what it is I want, what it is I don't want, which means I'm fixing to be a better creator because now I get to choose from a place of new because I've already had that experience and I know that's not what I want. So I get to create new.
Yes.
So it's just a cyclic event.
Is this experience that you want to be having right now? Because you have a choice in it, right? So if it isn't, like if you're at a point where you want change, then what is it your heart is telling you? And maybe it's not yet. Maybe you just know you want change. And maybe you need to go into that restful place, like you said, and get to know yourself. Because, and what does that mean? That inner work, right? That shadow work. That's some heavy stuff. It means like, you know, doing that inner surgery with yourself, sometimes you may need someone to help you with that too, because we can be real good at beating ourselves up, and we don't need to.
No.
We can be real judgmental on ourselves, and we don't need to. Past, I don't want to call them mistakes, because they're really not mistakes. They were choices you chose to have, that you made.
Yes.
And so when you say, like, I made the mistake and I got involved with this person and then it was bad, that's a victim mentality, okay? Because that's a victim mentality where you're like, I had no choice in it. They just took me over, and maybe that happened. That could happen. That's a different outcome. But most of the time, we had a choice in that. We walked right into that door.
Right.
That's where that bliss door, right? Is this a choice that we want to have with our heart or with our mind?
Right.
And we chose it. So
yes,
we can then release that person in love and light. That's what that means. Release you. Thank you for the experience that I had with you. I learned the lessons I needed to from that. And I release you in love and light, and may you go on your way. Right? There's nothing that's binding you or holding you energetically anymore. And you can move on, and they can move on.
yes.
That's kind of making amends with that energy, right?
That's releasing that bind in that chain. Because you're not just forgiving them, you're forgiving yourself.
Yeah.
Because the thing about it is, you don't even have to forgive yourself. It's ultimately an understanding that we've come here to have experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Period. This is our playground. It's just we got a little overwhelmed and then taken advantage of, because we're being led away from staying in that heart centerment. But this we also chose. We chose this because this is one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. Your longitude and your latitude, and you're just having those loops of experiences. If you don't have those, how do you know who you are if you don't have something to contrast it to? Even when you get to a place where it took me some time to really actually understand that, even down to the most evilest thing you can define something, you have to come from a loving place, because if we hadn't experienced it, would we know it? Would we be able to change it and make it something brighter, something more of a peaceful state of being, to know that once we recognize it, we'll never allow that again. We'll never allow it again, because we raise ourselves in that vibration, in that vibratory state, and we say, okay, this is what human beings are possible of if they lose that connection with the heart-mind connection. So,
and also the compassion, like,
yes.
when you've been to when you've walked in those shoes, then and then you can have compassion for those that are still walking that path.
Right.
And it's not a path of judgment, it's a path of knowing that. And when you become victorious within yourself, and that's for taking responsibility, that's what true sovereignty is, right?
Full
Is taking full responsibility. I take full responsibility of my experiences and my actions, everything. You might, then you're the captain of the ship, right?
Right.
And then you're the captain.
Yes.
And you have freedom within that too, because you know that, like, if you say something, you got to stand on it, because it's what that's your energy. It's not somebody else telling you that that's what you should say. That's not sovereignty.
No. And
that does,
yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you go and you use your word as a sword to say whatever it is you want to say to people. That's not what we mean. To be standing in your own means that you understand that whatever you do has an effect on others. Sometimes it can be beneficial. Sometimes saying nothing is more important.
Right.
And just listening, just being there,
Right.
just holding that space. That's what that means, holding that space, so they can
Right.
come up and some people, some people need to release. Sometimes we need to release, but not to co-commiserate.
No.
That's victim.
Right. And even in that recognition, Melzie, you stated perfectly that when we are out here and we're interacting with other human beings, when you look at them, you see them as a fractal of self, and you don't want harm, you would never want to harm them. So to come from that level, you have to come from a compassionate state. You have to be in that loving place where that heart is resonating, and it's leading the mind to the resolutions or the solutions that are there, regardless of how someone else is being. They're just having their experience. It's just not where you're at, but it doesn't mean you can't alter that state because you vibrate at a higher level. And if they can't meet you at that level, guess what's going to happen? They're going to remove themselves. That's right. That's right. And that's where we as human beings are coming to more understanding that we don't have to be vicious. We never had to be. We just didn't know any different until now. And that's what we're giving ourselves. We're giving ourselves back to ourselves. You're better than this. You can make better choices. You are the very representation of the being that you've come here to be. And that's ultimate love, compassion, an understanding that everybody is at where they're at, have no judgment. If anything, be the guidance or lend tools that will help those individuals meet you where you're at. That's masterful. That's mastering life.
That is beautiful, Norma.
Thank you. And that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to tell somebody what to do.
No.
That's not my job. I'm here
not
trying to do that.
Either.
Right. However, excuse me. However, as I come more into that loving place, that ultimate understanding of self, I want that for others. Oh my, I want that for others because I want them to feel the way that I do, because I know it's possible. Because if I feel this way, and you're a human being too, you have the capability of feeling that as well. So this is what I want to be able to provide. I want to be able to provide that clarity, that understanding through the guidance or the tools that I have lended myself to anyone that is where they are and they want to know this. I can only give it to you. Right. It's beautiful. I'll be whatever it is I need to be if you have that will, because it's got to take that will. You've got to have the will within self to want to know.
Yes.
Want to know who you are. Know thyself. And thyself will be true. It's beautiful.
That is. That's a beautiful teaching, because I used to think that know thyself, like to thy own self be true.
Yes.
What did that mean? Did that mean I get to go out and do whatever I wanted? It doesn't mean that. No, but it means
the one who decides how you presently show up at every moment, every day.
Yes.
You choose.
Yeah, every day, every moment. And you can reset at any moment.
Yes, you can.
You don't have to go to sleep and reset. Cancel clear. So if there's something there that you're like, I'm not receiving that. Like, let's say your boss calls you up and he gives you a load of like you haven't been performing this and this and this. And maybe it's true. Maybe it isn't, but maybe somebody's saying some untruths to you. Just say, no, cancel clear. I'm not going to receive that. I know that's not true. Cancel clear. Reset. or maybe it is true.
Yeah.
And you need to go, you know what? I think that he's right. I got to work a little bit. So cancel, clear. I'm not going to let this affect my heart. Let's move on.
Right. Right. And you get to choose any second, every moment, every day, what you're experiencing in your everyday life. Because those are the moments. When you catch yourself, that's the moment you can change it. That's the moment you alter who you are, which means that alters the experience you have in life from there forward. You become a different person. You change who you are. You become anew. For everything that you see about yourself that you say, that just don't feel like this fully who I am, or I don't like that I do this, or I don't like that I do that. Okay, that's fine. Don't judge it. Just say, I want to see what part of this I can become better at. But when
what is the outcome? So like if you catch yourself, maybe it is smoking, right? So instead of like, oh, I'm so dirty because of smoke, oh, I can't stand all those negative thoughts that you have that are controlling, because when you're in an addiction, a chain, a binding thing, that's what goes through your mind, are those secular things.
Right.
But maybe what you could do is see the outcome of what it would feel like to be free. Because when you start doing that, you've actually achieved that freedom. So start living in the freedom. Where's your freedom moment?
You be in that feeling. Be in that feeling of saying, you go and you stand outside and just stand with your bare feet. This is what I do. I go outside and I stand in my bare feet. And I bring my hands to a prayer to my chest. Because when you do that, you can even touch your chest. Because what you're doing is you're bringing yourself into a safe place, safe space. And what you're doing is as you're sitting there, you think, you have the gratitude, and you be appreciative of what you have in that moment, every bit of it, no matter what you think it is. Stop thinking, feel what you're feeling. And as you're feeling that, and you say, I'm here before you today, let's see what we can change about ourselves and become better at. So if you want to say, okay, I no longer, when you step out there, don't go out there saying, I don't want to be a smoker anymore. Because you just keep looping that back to yourself. You go out there and you say, oh, it feels good to breathe. I love that my lungs are expanding so full of this air that I'm breathing. And I love that nothing distracts me from this moment, because I'm free of any addictions that I once had. I'm a free being. And what you're doing is, as you're standing in that feeling, in that motion, and what you're doing is you're creating that time, and you're seeing yourself as you're having that feeling. And what's happening is you're seeing yourself not being that smoker, not being this, not being that, because you're not walking out there judging who you're being. You're walking out there seeing who you want to become.
Who you are. Because you're in that present right now.
Right.
You're right there. I'm breathing. I am breathing this beautiful air. I am absorbing the beautiful sunlight. I'm experiencing this time. So then you're not like you're putting those labels of judgment onto yourself. Right.
Because you're standing out there and you're doing the breathing and stuff. Guess what? You're not seeing yourself doing this. You're just seeing yourself being who you are in that moment.
In your reality, your mind, your spirit is being in that moment.
Right. And it's all about your moments and how you're feeling in those moments.
Well, should we wrap it up? I don't know if FCB has a show on after this.
He does, yeah.
He does.
We got so into this, and I apologize, y'all. This is something new for me and Melzie, and Doug. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Doug. Behind the scenes.
I didn't see if there were any questions. So this is something I'm not Tanja. I'm just not that stupid woman. So this will definitely take time, but we do appreciate you being here and listening to us tell you who we are and how we are becoming more and more about who who we are and who we're going to be becoming. So, Melzie, do you have any last words?
I just think we've had a really good chat today, and this has been amazing. Like, to talk about it and how to have a game plan, right? To enter into changing our lives through our mind and our heart. I think it's, you know, I don't know have words to say how big it is, because when we learn this is the key to everything. This is it.
You are the key.
Yeah, you are too.
You are the key. Thank you, everyone, for being here. You know, like I said, we're just only here telling you how we've gotten where we're at. Doesn't mean I'm any higher or any lower. It just means I am where I am and you are where you are. And all we ever want to do is provide you with the guidance and the tools that helps you elevate yourself to that ultimate being you are. Because you are. Because I am. I am that I am. Know thyself. Yes. Know thyself. And to thyself be true.
Yes.
All right.
Bye,
y'all
everyone.
have a good night. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, Melzie.